Thanks. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this evening's April 16th meeting of the Wethersfield Planning and Zoning Commission to order. My name is Joe Hammer. I'm the clerk of the commission. I'm filling in for our chair, who's going to be getting here a little later tonight. We have, first off, I want to, well, before I get to that, why don't we do roll call. Rich Roberts, the chair, will be arriving shortly. Ryan Allard, Joe Hammer here, Tom Dean. Here. David Drake. Here. Dave Edwards. Tony Homicki. Here. Jim Hughes. George Oikel. Here. Joe Ercolani. Here. Peter Lambruni. Here. Paul Thompson. Here. So I think I got 8, Justin, and then Peter will make 9?
Correct.
So everyone will participate. New business, item 3.1, the public hearing 2177-24 special permit for proposed retail use at 1000 Silas Deane Highway. That matter is going to be continued until our next meeting, which is on May 7th. If anybody's here for that or watching at home, that will be on May 7th at our meeting, which starts at 7 p.m. Before we get to item 3.2, which is another special permit, for those of you who may not have attended meetings in the past on the public hearing items, which the next 2 items are, we'll hear from the applicant first, who will come up to the microphone over there, explain the application. Commission members will have a chance to ask questions. We'll provide an opportunity for public comment, and if you'd like to speak, please come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Excuse me. And at the end of public comment, we'll give the applicant an opportunity to respond to any questions or comments that have been made by the public. When we close the hearing, we're not able to take any more information from anyone, not from the applicant and not from the public. And with that said, item 3.2, public hearing, application 2178-24, Joshua Tryon seeking special permit renewal of application 2092-21 for outside storage of a boat in the driveway at 42 Crest Street. If you could come up and identify yourself and tell us about your application.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Josh Tryon. I'm the one requesting this along with my wife. I live at 42 Crest Street. Apologies, she couldn't be here. She's 6 days away from having our second baby. So if I go running out, it's because the bat phone went off.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So this permit was approved 2 years ago. Anthony Homicki, apologies if I said your name wrong, proposed that it be reviewed after the 2 years. So this is why I'm back seeking a permanent approval. One of the things that was brought up is why can't it be stored on the side yard on either side? I think the packet last time, I don't know if you have it this time, but the packet last time showed that there's 12 feet on one side, but it's a sloped yard, so there's no room to actually store it there with the width of the trailer and the boat. Plus, it would be right in our neighbor's direct view on the side yard. So we're requesting that between the months of May to October, we be able to keep it in our driveway in the back left corner. We still, with that, have room to park both of our cars and have an extra parking space still. Driveway's big enough so it's not taking up our whole driveway and making us park in the road or anything like that. It is possible to put it in the garage in the winter, so from November 1st on, we can put it in there, but it's about a 4-hour process. One of our neighbors who still opposes it after the 2 years, he wrote in saying that we should just be able to fold the tower down and drop it in the garage. Well, it's not that easy. We have a 6.5-foot header. The boat requires us backing it. Well, first of all, we have to take the rear platform off. We have to take the rear trim tabs off just to have the room to fit it diagonally from the left rear to the front right of the garage. So we have to take those two things off. It takes probably half hour. We have to put special wheels and tires on that give us the clearance just to get under the header with the boat lowered basically onto the ground on a wheel dolly. So we can get it about halfway in that way, and then it's a manual process. Me and a large friend push it inch by inch, foot by foot, getting the angle from the left rear to the front right. Once we get it all the way in there, and generally it takes a few times back and forth to line it up right. We have both rear corners touching the back side of the garage. The tongue still sticks out by about 2 feet, so I have to completely remove the folding tongue. And at that point, I have about an inch of clearance for the door to shut. So to have to do that every time we take the boat out and put it back in there is obviously just way too much of a process. So that's why we're requesting it, and we would appreciate the consideration.
You referenced a neighbor letter, and just for the record, it was a comment from William Chase at 9 Westwood Drive. Where is he in relation to your house?
It's the next street over. He drives by quite a bit and takes pictures. So he's reported this a few times, and of all his concerns, the only one that's actually valid is that the tower does take 10 minutes to fold. Everything else, he was assuming from the process of helping a friend fold his boat's tower, but it's just simply not that as easy as he assumes it is to put it in the garage.
Wait a minute, a friend behind you or across the street?
No, he has a friend in some other town that he has helped fold a wakeboard tower on once.
Oh.
And says that it should be just as easy for us to just fold it down and put it in our garage.
Thinks it should be easy for you.
Yeah. So that's why I just wanted to go into the detail of the process of getting it in and out, because it is a very long and not fun process. So.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chase is suggesting that it go in the side yard that you said has a slope?
Yeah, so I don't know if your packet has it, but the original meeting, there was a diagram of the yard. I can
Yes.
pass it around if you want.
We
But
have that.
the one side, the right side of the house is where we have our central air, so there's just no space. It's just not wide enough at all. So if it were to go on the left side, it would be on the sloped yard that's half grass, so the boat would very likely sink in. But it's only 12 feet wide, and the boat is 10 feet on the trailer, maybe slightly larger, maybe like 10 and a half. So it would take up all of our walking space on the side of the yard. It would be right in our neighbor's 2 side windows, the boat sitting there.
That would be on the left side,
The
looking in
left
from the
side,
street?
Yep.
And what about, what is it about, is there enough clearance outside of the generator to put it on the right side?
No, there's not. There's a stone wall there between ours and the neighbor's house on the right side. So there's just, with how far the central air condenser sticks out.
How often do you take it out in the season?
Generally every weekend, and if we get lucky, we'll go midweek sometimes if we have a nice day. A little harder with not soon to be 2 kids, but eventually, we plan on living here a long time, so eventually when it's easy enough to just throw everyone in the truck and run it down to the Wethersfield launch, we'll definitely do that. In past years, we've gone out, sometimes 2-3 times a week during the summer when it was the 2 of us, so it could be that frequent. It's not that frequent right now. Probably, but with that, it's probably every weekend that it's nice enough.
Justin, who got notice, what radius of the property got notice of the hearing?
I think it's 200 feet from the property here.
And there's a sign posted also?
Sign is
Okay.
posted also.
Have you spoken to any of the other neighbors before tonight?
Not this time. Last time, we had several of our neighbors in our direct view. So the gentleman that lives directly across the street and his son lives directly behind us. They both wrote in favor last time, so that hasn't changed. Our neighbor directly to the, well, looking at the house directly to the left of us, they wrote in last time stating that they have no problem with it. We have new neighbors to the left, but they, you know, their son comes over and looks at the boat all the time, so I imagine it's okay. But they haven't written it either way, but we've talked to them plenty of times and assume if they didn't write in, they don't have problems
The
with it.
new neighbors are on the generator side of the house?
They're on the generator
The
side,
right side,
yeah.
okay.
And last time, we took the time to walk around and talk to people, and, you know, everyone that's on our street, mostly in our direct view, had no problem with it. And even with that, there's, I think it was 60 and 69 Crest last time wrote in that they weren't in favor with some concerns. One was that it would become a projectile in a storm. But even with some of the concerns of the, there were 3 people that wrote in last time, and William Chase is the only one that wrote in this time,
How
so.
far away are they from you?
60 and 69 are 4 houses up,
4?
but they didn't write in opposition of it this time. So after 2 years of the boat being in the driveway and them
So what did they
not
write
caring
in
enough to
about?
write in, I assume that it's.
Were they writing in
No.
to support you, or what?
Not last time, no, but
This time?
they haven't wrote in this time.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
So after the 2 years of actually seeing it, you know, maybe some of their concerns were not concerns anymore.
Thank you.
I just want to add, Mr. Chase asks that the request be denied and that the applicant be allowed to keep the boat along the side of the house on a defined parking area. Dave, you have a question?
Okay, why don't you put it in the back of the house? You've been there 2 years with it, why don't you just put a little time, gravel, whatever you need, so you can put it in the back of the house and kick the problem away?
If you know Crest, it's extremely
No, I understand, but
wet
I'm
in the
looking at your
backyard.
pictures, I understand, but you do have, again, I remember we did this a couple of years ago. We did it because you had bought it and you kind of stuck. But we kind of don't approve these very much. And it's just that after 2 years, you would think you would have made an effort to do something to put, forget the.
Well, it would take up our whole walking space
The
of
back of
our,
the house, I said.
it's too wet to put it in the backyard every time. I mean, for half the season, especially last year, we had 5 weeks of flooding. It would have been sunk halfway. It's 6,100 pounds on the trailer.
No, I understand that, but.
So
I guess what
we'd
I'm
be
saying is
tearing up
you
our
had-
yard.
No, wait, you had 2 years to work on some type of a thing there, so you actually had a place to store a boat, and,
Well, when we came last time for the permit, it wasn't based on us having 2 years to pave our side yard and put it back there. It was to see if there were any concerns after seeing the neighbors, have to experience having the boat there for 2 years. And clearly, there's less concerns this time than last time, so.
I know what you're talking
You else have questions on Tony?
We've had a couple self-storage facilities built in the last 3 to 5 years here in Wethersfield. Have you considered having it stored up there and permanently and gated in?
I haven't really looked into it. I know it's just adding an expense for a 23-foot boat. It would be probably a pretty hefty monthly payment, but I also do my own maintenance on the boat, things like that, so having to go get it from storage every time I want to work on it or something like that, or if we want to make a quick trip out, then we have to revolve that around the timing of going to the storage and grabbing it, bringing it back to the storage instead of, it seems to me that it's reasonable to be able to park it during the season in our own driveway because we have the space. And because neighbors aren't opposing it other than the one neighbor who opposes everything.
I'll assume George drove by, but I haven't, and it's referenced in Mr. Chase's letter that there's a monster no-trailer at 15 Crest Street? Is there something else on the street that's out
Yeah, one of our neighbors has a permit for a camper, and they always have it in the side yard.
have a
It's
permit?
always very well
Do
maintained.
they have a permit, or you guessing?
No, they have a permit. Yeah,
They have a permit.
they've been twice for it. He constantly writes in about that. If they pull it out to do their spring maintenance, he's called in saying, or he's wrote into the town that they're running, I think they were out cleaning it late one night to get ready for a trip, and so they had it in their driveway, and he wrote to the town saying that they're running a Airbnb out of it. So there's just like, nothing is actually warranted most times, but he does like to voice his concerns quite a bit.
Your boat is a 10-foot width?
Yes.
Wheel-
On the trailer, because it has
With the-
pylons to be able to line it up when you're pulling it on.
And that sideline's 12 foot. Is the pitch front to back, or is it from the house away from the house?
It's from the house away, so it would be more of like a leaning to the left.
Yeah, it just seems like a fairly slight pitch. You make it sound like it's a severe pitch, but again, I haven't driven by it. George, have you driven by it yet?
Yeah, I sure have.
Okay,
I go
I
by
assume
every
so.
time he comes in front of us.
I,
Looks fine to me, actually.
I,
That's my attitude.
To your
I
question.
don't have any other questions, so I'll leave it to the other.
To your question, I drove by it, and it's a slight pitch. I mean, you'd have to regrade it, but it's not impossible to regrade. You may need a small retaining wall, like on this left side, but, I mean, it's probably only about a foot retaining wall would be needed to make it work. I mean, there'd be some costs associated with making that usable, but it's possible. This is probably back to you, Justin. Not too long ago, and I couldn't find my old agendas, I should probably keep them all. Someone came here in this general area, I don't remember the street, but I remember it was close to this area, and they wanted approvals for a mobile home. We denied that.
Yeah, I think on Crystal Street is the one you're
Right,
thinking of.
which is in this general area, this
Yep.
same size lots, same neighborhood, and all that. How big was that? Do you remember? I couldn't remember how big that was.
I don't remember, I do remember it was a corner lot, so it was a slightly different situation with that one.
Well, his issue was he couldn't go in the back because of,
Right.
same situation.
Right.
He had a bunch of encumbrances, and so
Right.
he said, for those reasons, I want to place it in the front.
That was
I-
much bigger, Peter, I think, as I recall. I think I drove by that and looking at the pictures.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how big that was.
It was really big. I
think
mean, I
it
forgot
was-
the dimensions.
Yeah, I think it was like 28 or 30 or something like that. But I can't remember, so, don't quote me on it, but it does seem like it was bigger than 23.
I'm just curious how that size compares to this size.
I do have pictures of the boat in the driveway that, from the view that people
No, I
can
have the
see.
pictures
Oh, you
here.
do have those, okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how this compares to something we just recently heard. Right in
And
the
most
same neighborhood.
campers are also like, what, 20, 30 feet tall, maybe?
I don't
At
know.
least the big ones like that, so this is much smaller, or at least as
Oh, this is
much
20
space as it
This is
takes up.
23, right?
23-foot long, yeah, but a 23-foot boat is generally a lot smaller than a 23-foot camper, height-wise.
Mr. Tryon, just to clarify and make certain, this is the same boat and the same trailer
Yep.
that you had at the 2021 application?
Yeah, same exact boat, yep.
Okay, thank you.
It looks a little better now because I buffed it out, but otherwise, same boat.
There's no change in length of the trailer or the boat or?
No, and that was one of the stipulations, that it was to review after the 2-year initial permit to make sure none of those things had changed. And we have no intention of getting rid of it anytime soon. And even if we did in 10 years, we wouldn't go bigger than a 23-foot of the same style boat.
George. What's the distance of the people, how far away from his lot are they notified? 300 feet, 200?
I believe it's 200 feet, yeah.
So it'd be how, more or less how many, any idea?
Just
Does he just get one or two in each
How many,
direction?
how many letters did you send out, Josh? Do you remember?
It was 43, but I think one goes to the town.
Yeah. So
43.
So 42 numbers.
it ends up being quite a good number of houses that has to, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow, okay.
Just a quick question, why isn't it, is it feasible to, get a slip for it wherever it is that you usually use it as an option?
Well, we go different places, and sometimes we go up to New Hampshire on vacation in the summer, so having easy access to it is preferred for us. So we pay for the permit, the town permit to launch a Wethersfield Cove. I've heard that, there's a waiting list to get in the dock club or yacht club. I think that's several years long. So that's a possibility down the road, but with storing it in the water, you also deal with a lot more maintenance with like potential blistering over the course of the season, or personally, if we were to moor it in Wethersfield Cove, with some of the traffic it gets there over the summer, I'm not in huge favor of leaving it in the water there where there's a lot of people always hanging out. So that's my personal feeling, but probably more the maintenance, added maintenance of it coming out with huge scum lines after the season and that sort of thing. And if it's moored, I can't easily work on it if I need to and things like that, so.
Dave?
Yeah, just based on Commissioner Dean's comments, I recall last time we did this, we approved this boat.
Yeah,
So you buy a new 23-foot boat.
well, it stated that it was a boat of equal length and size. I forget what
I recall, then they didn't write it up right, because I recall this, we said this boat, which is okay, it's this boat, but if you bought a new boat, we don't necessarily would approve it because it's 23 feet or under. I think we were cutting you some slack because you had it.
Yeah, well,
would.
I did rewatch the YouTube video from last time, and Peter Lambroni motioned to approve with stipulations a 23-foot boat max, not this 23-foot boat max, but 23-foot boat max, time limit 2 years, made out October, stored in the garage the rest of the year. So it at least wasn't stated in the motion that it'd be this 23-foot boat. But again, we don't have any intention to replace the boat.
Any other commission members have questions before we go to the public? All right, is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak on this application? Or ask a question on this application? Anyone in the audience? Last call for anybody in the audience who'd like to speak on this. Okay, seeing no one, any further questions by anybody on the commission, or Justin, any questions?
no questions from me. Just to clarify, the original approval stated that the maximum length of the boat is 23 feet, but didn't mention this specific.
boat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add at this point?
No.
Yeah.
Unless there's other.
On your last comment, are you concerned about changing boats at any time soon, or anything?
No, I have, this one's paid for, so.
Naming the boat or anything?
Yeah, no, we have no plans of doing that. But that's another reason why I do my own maintenance and everything. I like to take care of it and make this one last 20 years, hopefully, so.
Good man.
Peter, did you have?
I'm just a little confused about these type of applications that come in. Why is the planning and zoning doing this? Question number one, and this is kind of a rhetorical question.
Because it's
but-
over 18 feet long and it's in the front yard.
Yeah, but
Our regulations say that anything over 18 feet and in the front yard is a special permit. And a special permit is through this group.
So how many special permits have we done with this kind of an issue, over 18 feet, and front yard storage in Wethersfield?
I don't know offhand. I think the last time we did the 58 Crystal Street one, the RV you were talking about, I think I had found that they had approved about 10 or so in the past 5 to 7 years, but I can't remember the exact
So you
numbers.
don't know what we've done with boats.
No, not offhand.
Okay.
Dave?
Wasn't there a boat that we recently disapproved off Wells Road going west? What's the streets on the side of the hill?
On Eastern Drive, I think.
Eastern Drive, we just rejected that guy, not to do it. I'm just saying, we gotta be real careful.
Yeah, I
We do it,
agree.
You know,
I mean,
I'm not
I,
necessarily against this thing, but I'm with you what you're saying. It's, you know, if you
I mean-
wanna, don't allow it, so.
yeah,
you know.
Dave, I'm totally with you that I thought that it was a 2-year approval and then hopefully a solution would be worked out. I mean, with some cost, I understand there's costs, but you can store this on the side of this house, you can.
That's our one walkway to the backyard.
Go, make the walkway the other side. I mean, it doesn't limit
Should
you.
be if he saw the front of the house, it'd be very unsightly
Well,
to create pavers around the other side of the house.
I think we have to be very careful to keep allowing these things to happen when there's possibility of doing alternatives. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess if, you know, if the commission, if the sentiment is that, you know, we could encourage him to try to make other, or if we were to extend it, we could do it for another period and say during that period, we'd like you to explore other options, whether it's doing something in the side yard or off the property someplace else. I mean, that's
I
certainly
mean, I'd
an
like to
option.
say, I'm looking to get the guy a break, go
Right.
with the 2 years, but we'd like to see him come back in 2 years, try to, some type of approach to get it towards the backyard. I understand, you don't have a slope like this, you got a little bit of slope, and you know, it go in and out, so. But my point is that we gotta be real careful, because we just rejected that guy, because he wanted to put it in his back, he said he couldn't because there's a fence there, but he figured it out. I mean, you gotta, but, you know, people live there.
I mean,
because they
was
don't
it-
want this in front yard, yeah.
It's more, or it's just as much that it takes up, like, we keep our garbage cans
I
on
mean,
that side of the
I'm saying
house.
you gotta get in the backyard. I understand you can't put it inside the house, you gotta get in the backyard. That's what I'm saying. I know it's not easy, but you got the boat.
And our neighbor's fence comes out all the way up to the property line split, and that would be difficult to get the boat back there as well.
Well, yeah, I think just if I were to roll this up as I think about it, right, it's about consistency. And I think that's one thing, John, if we could start tracking that would help. I mean, if, you know, what you're weighing here is homeowner, taxpayer, well-maintained boat. It's not a monstrosity. He's using Wethersfield launch, right, like all good stuff. But you have to balance it with the neighbors and how neighbors have felt in other situations where this has come in. And I think the risk for us is the inconsistency factor.
Right, and I agree with you, and I guess just bigger picture.
Following Paul up, it was made at a previous hearing, I think on similar situation, that we are a boating community. I think it was down in Old Wethersfield, but nevertheless, that goes throughout the town. We are oriented toward water. We have a lot of boats in town, and I think we've made every effort for the most part to accommodate them. It's not, as long as they're not so obtrusive and ridiculous for the neighbors, that it doesn't make any sense to keep them in a front yard.
Yeah, and to your point, so not to interrupt, a big reason for us buying the house, we were looking in Rocky Hill and Wethersfield because we boat so much that we wanted to be close to the launch. We always, when I stored the boat in New Britain before moving here, we always went to the Cove anyway, so it was a big factor in moving to the town is that it's near the water and things like that. So when we realized after the fact that we had to have a permit to have our own boat, we were surprised, but you know, definitely, I think it's in a case-by-case basis based on, are the neighbors okay with it? Is the boat, you know, big and ugly, or do they maintain it well? And we try to live by all those things. So I think if there's one recent denial, it isn't necessarily apples for apples. They may have had a single lane driveway. They may have had a situation that wasn't the same, so I hope that just because one other denial happened, that isn't a huge weight against us.
And Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, but earlier, I think you said to me that the need for the special permit, even if it wasn't in the front yard, based on the length of the boat exceeding 18 feet, it would require a special permit even in the side yard. Would that also hold true in the rear yard?
Yes.
Okay, just so everybody understands that aspect of it as well. Any other questions, commission members? Anything further?
No.
Would anyone like to move to close the hearing?
Second.
So moved.
Rich moved and George second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, hearing closed. Would somebody like to make a motion to start a discussion?
I'll jump in.
Sure, Paul.
Make a motion to start the discussion around public hearing 2178-24Z.
Yeah, sorry, I guess what I meant
Oh, you
was
want
an
a motion to
actual
approve? You want to do the whole
Yes,
thing?
sorry,
Okay,
sorry,
I
I wasn't
got you.
clear. Yep.
Motion to approve 2178-24Z, Joshua Tryon seeking a special permit, re-renewal on application number 2092-21-Z.
And any conditions, any time limits on your motion?
1 year.
What's that?
1 year.
1 year. Why?
So that he can start to make accommodations for future storage of the boat.
Is there a second to the
I'll
motion?
second that.
Peter, second, so now we can have some discussion. Yes, Tom?
Yeah, I think the issue about having consistency in our decisions has some merit, because I think it's an essential principle of justice that we don't want to treat people differently with regards to the same issue. On the other hand, the regulation, allows such boats to be stored without having a permit if they are 18 feet or under. The regulations allow for such approvals to take place on boats larger than 18 feet by special permit. And I think the reason for that seems to be reasonable and logical, and that is that different properties have different situations. If this was a boat stored in, for example, in my neighborhood, where there are, small, basically rather small houses, small lots, this would be a terrific eyesore in essence. And but in a neighborhood with larger lots and where other folks have similar kinds of situations that have been permitted, it seems not unreasonable to allow this gentleman and his family to enjoy the privilege that their wealth gives them by having, this boat. It doesn't seem to be controversial in the neighborhood. There is one neighbor who has an axe to grind with either the applicant or this issue in general. But the rest of the neighborhood seems to have settled down and accepted this boat and its present storage situation with grace and goodwill. And
We haven't heard from the audience.
We did.
yes, we have.
In the past? Yeah, okay.
We opened it up and nobody here chose to spoke.
Nobody did?
Right.
Oh,
That's right.
I missed it. So-
And there was only the one, communication of dissent that came from this one particular neighborhood who's not in the immediate proximity of this particular dwelling. So I think it would be reasonable to allow this situation to continue. He's limited to the 23-foot, it's only 5 feet longer than the 18-foot that he would have as a matter of right. And as was pointed out, this is not like an RV or big trailer that has a much more visual impact than this boat. And I just don't think that as a community that has a maritime history, that we should be so ironclad to refuse to allow, different people, different properties with different situations and different lot configurations and different size houses and the like to be able to have their situation taken individually, as this is a special use permit which allows the commission to make these kinds of decisions. And I think absent a particular finding of unsightliness, of community discord, or other factors that would cause one to rule against this application, that we should allow it. That's my opinion.
Second a motion?
No, I'm not making a motion because the motion is on the
I
table.
wouldn't have a problem repeating what we did before, give them the 2 years, and you come back, see if you could, you got 2 years to try to do something, not to say we wouldn't approve it again in 2 years.
That's your motion.
That'd be my motion, the way he did the motion, I would change it to 2
Paul
years.
made it. I'm sorry.
Make it 2 years, give them exactly what we did before, and maybe 2 years, you come up with a little something better. I mean, we're not looking to punish
How
them.
long?
2 years.
I'm willing to go.
Don't wanna do it.
I think
Okay.
2 is fine, but,
You don't want to go longer.
I wouldn't want to go longer.
Why?
2 years is long enough to look for some alternative. 2 years is also enough to reflect changes in who's in the neighborhood and opinions can change.
Okay.
I mean, 2 years is a reasonable amount of time. You start, 3, 5, 7 years is too long.
So,
Who was the second on this?
I second it. I'll accept two. I think it's important to recognize that if there's a way to do something in line with the regulations, you ought to do it. I mean, I understand it costs money, but people do it all the time. This lot is not so challenging that you could not, forego putting something along the side and further back. You can. It'll just cost some money. So if you want to enjoy the boat, I think it behooves you, if you want to keep it local, it behooves you to try to work it into the regulation as it was intended, not in the front of the yard. That's my opinion. So I hope that in the 2 years that you consider that carefully, because I don't want to be back here having this debate again in 2 years. I really don't.
Just to be clear, in terms of the motion, I'm going to suggest we carry forward conditions 2 and 3 from the prior approval. Condition 2 permits the boat to be stored in the driveway location only between May 1st and October 31st of each year, and condition 3 says that the maximum length of the boat is 23 feet. Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those, I hope those will hold, right?
And the 2 years runs from when? From
Well, when
today?
did it looks like it expired. I thought I said it was an
November.
expiration date, so it should be from now if it's already expired.
Yes, so from now, okay. Is that okay with you, Peter? Okay, then.
You want to make it longer?
I'm fine with the 2 years that everyone has arrived at here. Tom?
It does sound as if at least several of the commission members are wanting to add I think, a fourth condition onto that, and that is, or modify condition number 2 to add a requirement that essentially expanding upon the consideration on number 2 by requiring the owner to investigate other storage alternatives that would remove the vessel from the front of the house to the rear or the side or off-site, something of that sort.
And what are you asking him to do?
So that would be a third amendment, because it looks like, it's, at least some of the members of the commission basically want to have this extended for 2 years, and that's it. And if he hasn't found another solution within, that 2-year period, then he basically wouldn't be renewed.
I don't think anybody has said that's it, period. I think there was more an encouragement that he explore other options, either on the property or off the property. And I know Dave
If
and
he comes back in 2 years, we may approve it again if the guy makes it.
But I
No,
think
I agree
that-
with Pete.
I think your other comment, though, Tom, in terms of encouraging to explore options, I think it's clear part of this discussion. He heard that, I don't know that it needs to be set
How
forth
would,
as
I
a
mean, how would,
condition.
it would be overly burdensome to make him prove it.
Yeah, I think he understands what everybody has
Yeah,
said.
and that wasn't mentioned last time too. It was more stated that if the neighborhood was okay with it after the 2 years, that it would be made permanent, so that there wasn't encouragement of putting it in the side yard
I
based
actually-
on,
I'm sorry, I should have, since the hearing is closed,
Oh.
appreciate that you wanted to comment on that. But, so are you proposing just to leave the motion as is that correct?
Yeah, we'll put some takes on it. So the motion with 2 years,
2 years, it carries forward the May 1st to October 31st, and it carries forward maximum length 23 feet.
yes.
And Peter, yes, okay, yes, Tom.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your comments and clarification, because my comments were largely for clarification, because it seemed to me like there was some movement toward further restricting this, and I was trying to find out whether or not my impression was correct.
Any, yes, Tony?
Can you restate how many letters went out with this application? Approximately?
Yeah, I think it was about 40.
42.
40 went out. We had the same 40 probably went out 2 years ago. We had one constructive comment that came through. 2 years ago, we had a handful of positives and a handful of negatives. I was more comfortable with a 1-year term. I go back to the gentleman that came in Old Wethersfield. I think we approved his trailer to stick out in the front of the house 19 inches, and the rest of the 23-foot boat could be at an angle in the driveway, and we spent probably an hour and a half on that one. So I think a 1-year term was good, but I'm in favor of the 2-year term. I think you've heard how we feel. We don't want to continue a precedent neighborhood by neighborhood and have 20 or 30 of these come before us anyway on it. So that's just my observation. If we sent 42 letters out and if we had 20 complaints, I think we'd be here for quite a bit longer. So I think the 2-year term works well.
Just a quick note, the letter that we received was actually outside of that range, so that we didn't, that letter was not prompted by the
Prompted
mail.
by the mail.
Right. If I could make one suggestion, just based on our discussion at our last meeting, we had talked about when we are asking people to come in for a renewal, we would say if we were going to waive the fee in the future, considering that the applicant would have to come back in regardless because of the size of the boat, it may be worthwhile to consider that from the commission, if you'd like to do that.
Thoughts?
I consider waiving the fee again.
I'm sorry?
I consider waiving the fee. I'm not looking to beat him up.
Okay with that?
Everyone okay with that?
So waive
You're
the
adding
fee.
that to your motion, then fee on the renewal application, if there is one, fee to be waived.
Right. It's onerous enough that he's coming back, and
Okay, Peter, is that okay?
Yep.
A second, okay. Further discussion? Rich?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in favor of a 2-year limit. We approved this once, nothing has changed. I don't want to go through this again in 2 years. Maybe I won't be here, but I don't think we all need to go through this again in 2 years.
I kind of agree with Rich. That's my feeling. I don't like doing this every 2 years.
That's why I thought
Something
the
wrong
1-year
here.
term made sense, but I'm okay with
I
2.
think sounds like they would like
Yeah.
one less than they like two, at least the last two.
You want to do
speakers.
4 years or something?
No,
Why
no.
not?
Right.
He knows he should be
So
doing something.
any further comment on the motion as presented? And if not,
That's why it's commenting.
No, I just don't see the point of a time limit.
Understood.
All right.
Everybody ready to vote? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No,
Any abstentions? So 8-1, I believe? Okay, you're approved as the motion was presented.
Okay, thank you. And that was without a fee
Fee
coming back
waived
for,
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rich, back to you. So that was,
all right. Next item, public hearing 2179-24Z, Wethersfield Evangelical Free Church, seeking re-subdivision approval to create a new lot called Lot B for a total of 2 lots at 495 511 Maple Street. Someone here on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening, my name is Jerry Gingras. I'm a congregant at Wethersfield Evangelical Free Church, also on the Finance Committee. And the church, several years back, had intentions of expanding north, towards the north of the property. And so, quite a few years ago, had then purchased a house actually, with a little over 1/3 of an acre. And that house was in really neglected state. So with the thought of expanding the church facility, rather than repair the house, had it torn down. Since then, quite a few years have passed. We've gone through a couple of different sizable thoughts on expansion, some towards the north. There was another one that was planned to perhaps go towards the west, but none of that happened. And at this point, all church expansions have been dropped. So there's no more plans for the church to do similar types of expansion. If there is expansion work that we do further down the road, it'll be to plant new churches in new communities. So with that,
Excuse me, sir. You're saying the present church body has decided that they don't want to do this again?
correct.
How do you know about the future? You don't.
How do I know? Say it
You
again?
don't know, right?
I'm not following your question.
Saying what they feel now. You're saying how they feel about this now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So when we bought the property, with the thoughts of expanding it, we had it combined with the church property, the rest of the other church property. So what was two lots became one. Now what we'd like to do is take that one lot and re-subdivide it the way it originally was. So bring back that 1/3 of an acre using the same property lines that were there before, and then have it processed as a approved building lot, if possible, and then to market the property and to get rid of it. So that's our application. That's what our application is for. We've had drawings done up for the property and the proposed subdivision, and are looking for your approval.
Thank you. Does anybody on the commission have questions for the applicant?
Basically, you just want to go back, right? Correct,
Same, nothing changed, go back to, throw it all away and just go back to where you were.
correct.
Tom?
So as I understand it, then, your proposal is really seen on sheet number 3 of the documents presented to us of the site. And the proposed Lot B is going to be that part of the current church property that will be subdivided into a separate building lot.
Correct.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I heard you state, this proposed Lot B was actually a separate lot itself at one time, which the church purchased for purposes of possible expansion, And what you're basically requesting the commission to do is approve a re-subdivision back to the way it was when you originally purchased that particular parcel.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Joe?
Justin, have the comments on the April 5th town engineers memo been incorporated into the plans?
All but two. There were two comments that needed to be adjusted out in the field. There was some new data that needed to be obtained. Very minor details. It could be certainly approved with a condition that, just the town engineer's comments be satisfied.
Which two is that?
Number 6 and 7, that the horizontal datum shall be based on NAD 83 and shall be noted on the plans, and that coordinates for a minimum of 2 monuments or markers shall be shown on the plans.
Okay.
Justin? So they're allowed one cut, right?
In theory.
And this is the cut that they're taking, right?
No.
How does this work?
No.
I'm a little confused about that.
Sure. So lots are allowed a free cut or first cut, free split, whatever you want to call it, provided they have not been subdivided or combined prior to the subdivision regulations. Since they were combined, since then, it now triggers a re-subdivision application. If it was a free split or a first cut, it wouldn't be here at all. You guys wouldn't need to review it.
So that's why, because it was combined,
Correct.
that's why they're back here.
Correct.
Okay.
And any further development any development on this new piece of property would be subject to the normal
Exactly.
conditions, approvals?
All normal setbacks. They need to come in for like a building permit for the house. That would need to show a survey showing the setbacks, everything like
Okay.
that. So, yeah.
Anybody else? All right, because it's a re-subdivision application, it's a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that wants to comment on this application? Please come on up, just give us your name and address for the record.
Tracy Gianfrido, 43 Meadowgate Street. I am not an abutter of the property in question. I actually moved into the neighborhood after the small house was taken down and the parcels combined. I just wanted to make one note that in the town engineer's plans, he said that it's not in the flood zone and it's not going to impact anything, but I did notice that the back parcel property line abuts what is a detention pond. I think it's called a retention pond on the drawing. And the homes, I live on the other side of Meadowgate Street, but the homes that abut this are very flood prone and are getting extreme amounts of water draining off from those properties. I believe it's been fixed in the past, but it's reoccurring. I mean, literally rivers flowing between the houses when we have heavy rain. So I just want to make sure that if there's any way that we can make sure that the retention pond is either expanded or not inflicted in any way. I don't know if that's part of the purview of the subdivision or if that would have to happen when they actually come in for a building permit. And since I don't know, and I don't have any problem with the subdivision, I think that, getting the church back the money that they spent on that land makes sense if they're not going to use it for the expansion. But I do have concern with the flooding of the homes on Meadowgate Street.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, from the plan, it looks like the detention basin is 50 to 100 feet away from the back line of this lot. And when the lot is developed, it would have to be done in such a way that the water doesn't go onto the neighbor's property.
Okay, all right.
I'm assuming it would be put into the storm drainage in the road. Is there anyone else in the public that wants to comment or has any questions about this? Sure, come on up, please.
Good evening, Joanne Koza, 82 Meadowgate Street. I am an abutting property owner to the church. Couple things. I'd like clarification on this proposed subdivision. I remember reading something where there was a question or a comment about requesting information from the church if they were going to need to take down any additional trees as a result of this. My concern is I've been actively involved in in a lot of the communication probably over the past 29 years that I've lived there, when the church has tried to expand, when that whole detention basin was put in, actively involved in conversations with Wetlands Commission when all that went in, so I have a long history with this. So my point about the trees is that whole area, we were promised a good buffer between the abutting property owners and the church. Over the years, I don't know if any commissioner has been out there on the property, these trees have gotten very mature. Some of them have fallen. Now the church has been a good neighbor in terms of cleaning them up, but I am concerned about keeping that buffer. And is this subdivision going to require more trees coming down? That buffer is getting very thin. If you look at Nancy Kerr, I believe was a budding property owner, this subdivision is going to go very close to her property. That tree line is getting thin. Tree line is getting very thin across all of Meadowgate. So I am concerned about that. That's a question clarification. If approved, I'd like a stipulation regarding that there be no additional trees taken down, or if they need to be, appropriate trees need to be put up. And I'm not talking about scrawny pine trees that were planted years ago that really did not create a good buffer. So they would have to be appropriate. The other thing is, talking about that detention basin that Tracy brought up, that was put in back in, I believe, either late 90s, early 2000s, and I don't see it regularly maintained. So there was a large storm basin put in there. Some of the property owners have drainage installed on the property such that the water that gets into the detention basin is supposed to be draining off properly. So to Tracy's point, if there is going to be development, even if it's residential, we need to be very cognizant of that area. And if that area is not being maintained, then the church needs to maintain that area. They need to maintain that berm that was installed years ago. So that may be crossing lines between Planning and Zoning and Wetlands Commission, but I think it's something that should be considered. And then my other question is, any of the additional church property that perhaps expands further back near my property, 82, or lining Bolter Road, can any of that property be subdivided in the future, such that as abutting property owners, we're going to be very concerned about what gets sold off and what gets developed there? And I appreciate your comment, Mr. Gingers, about not looking to expand the church anymore, because I know there's been conversations about that, and there's been a lot of communication. So it's good to hear that if your community needs to expand, that this, you look for other areas, perhaps, because I think you're basically built out as much as you can be here. So those are my concerns, my questions, clarifications. So I'd like those addressed.
All right, well, I'll take a shot at it, and you can fill in the blanks. I think the comment about removing trees was specific to the site development on the new proposed Lot B, which would be where the house was before,
Where the house was before.
right up against Maple Street, like in the first 50 to 75 feet from Maple Street back,
Okay.
not way in the back near your property.
No, but so even some of the tree line that's abutting, say, 62 Meadowgate coming further down, any of those trees need to come out? I guess the question really is, are you going to need to take down any additional trees, regardless of where they are? Anything that lines Meadowgate? Because that barrier is getting very thin.
Site development plan states which are to remain and which are to be removed.
Right, and I did not see a response
Ones
to
that I have are
that.
so small compared to Tom's and George's that I couldn't tell you whether the...
You're reading exactly what I saw, and I did not see a response to it, so.
So, one tree to remain here, one tree to be removed.
Yeah, they're right along the street line.
Right along the
One tree to be
street line,
removed where the
okay.
driveway would go.
Okay, so nothing along Meadowgate?
No.
Okay.
I missed I think there were three questions, and I don't remember the second one. I think the third one was, could there be other subdivisions that would affect the further back properties on Meadowgate and Bolter Road? And, I think theoretically, yes, but it would have to be such a large subdivision that it would probably mean that the church wasn't going to be there anymore.
Okay.
Particularly given the detention basin and everything like that. I mean, it would involve multiple rear lots and that kind of thing, because the only frontage is on Maple Street. It's probably not economically feasible to do that and keep the church there.
Okay.
What was the second one?
The second one, I think, was, I was addressing some of the concerns that Tracy had brought up about the detention pond, and some of the water she may be seeing between houses may, I don't want to speak for her, may be on properties that do not have any drainage at all. Other properties do have underground drainage, but it is also, our property being one, but we are hooked into the main drain on that detention area. And part of the stipulation, when all that was approved years ago, was that that was supposed to be maintained. The berm should be maintained, that detention area was to be cleaned and maintained. I don't know if there's records from the church saying that it's been maintained. I don't see it being maintained.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll look at whatever the original approval was and what the conditions were on that, and just kind of
So-
reinforce them, in conjunction with this application. I mean,
so that may help, but in addition, with this subdivision, if there is going to be building, because I think if I heard you correctly, Mr. Jingers, it was you want to subdivide it and then market it to property to get rid of it? Is that true? So you're going to sell the property and just basically get rid of it? So, with whatever building's going up, yes, the drainage, if it's going to be tied into the street, on Maple Street, that's one thing, but if they decide to somehow start changing the drainage in the back, yes, you're going to have concerns. Then I would say, I don't know if wetlands can get involved, but yes, you've got that whole detention area, you've got land that slopes there. If nobody has walked that property, I suggest you might want to really see what it's like, but there is a slope, and it does slope down to Meadowgate. So those abutting property owners on Meadowgate are not going to want any additional water than what they have now.
Is it the retention pond or detention area, it looks like it's on the north side of the property?
It is.
That's
Sorry.
part of, that's what will be being sold off? No, that's being
No.
retained, okay.
right, it's just the lowest right-hand northeast corner.
For lot B or?
Yeah, for proposed Lot B, and it's being
Gotcha.
graded in such a way that the water goes down toward Maple Street, not toward the back.
If that grading is, okay, that's correct, because I know when they extended the parking lot, that was the whole thing. The grading was, there is quite a hill there, so the way it was graded, they had to put in that detention area.
Yeah, the
And they had to
the
put in
parking
the
lot's like 14 feet higher than the detention basin. This lot is,
So if this lot's in the front, and all, in the stipulation is all the grading has to be done towards Maple Street, then fine, because as we all know, where that church is located, as you're coming around that corner, you're starting to go downhill on Maple Street. So
Yeah, that's how
regardless
it-
of where the subdivision is, that grading is going to be important.
yeah, I mean, that's how it's shown here. When they actually do a plan to build a house, they're going to have to address the drainage in such a way that it doesn't drain onto neighbors.
And there's no, then they would not be adding any additional water to that detention area, is that correct?
Very,
Um,
very
yeah.
likely, they would need a drainage easement to drain onto that property, and I don't think they would do that. Based on everything that's shown here, the drainage would go into the system, basically, in Maple Street.
Okay,
And it's sort of like the chairman was mentioning, when this comes in for an application, our engineering department will review exactly that kind of thing to make sure it's not impacting any other properties.
okay.
And
And
you
then,
cannot collect, in general, collect on your property and drain it onto your neighbor's property, in general.
correct.
Yeah, so that goes here to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, I think everybody in Connecticut has seen more water in places they haven't seen water in the last couple of years. And it just sort of exacerbates the situation and makes it,
And I'm seeing some underground springs actually, I think, popping, which you have no control over, unfortunately, to your point, but,
no, but as far as obligations relative to the detention basin that were a condition of the original approval, I think, it's fair to look at those and to kind of restate them as something to be considered in conjunction with this.
okay. And again, just to reiterate on Tracy's point,
In
as
other
long
words,
as
any
all that's
building
looked at.
permit that comes in, they check for that site.
Correct.
And it has to drain most likely toward West Street, right?
It's Maple Street.
Maple Street.
Maple, rather.
Yeah, in Wethersfield.
Yeah.
Which does, would it go one step further, where the engineering would look at the overall site and see if the detention basin is functioning or not functioning? Is that relevant to this application?
Well, I think once you kind of draw attention to your property, it's fair for the engineering department to look and say, well, wait a minute, you got approved for this parking lot based on these maintenance obligations. Are you or are you not complying with them? So,
That's exactly what you're looking for, I believe, even
Yeah,
Tracy.
I was going to say, some stipulation regarding that, just to make sure that doesn't get overlooked. And if there's a, detention
Yeah,
area is
flag.
not being maintained, as it should be,
We could put it
That-
as a strong concern.
strong concern, I want something that we can at least follow up on.
Gotcha.
If it's not,
Yep.
and that buffer. I have a very strong opinion about that.
yeah, there's nothing on these plans that show any of those trees being touched.
Okay. I think that was it for me for now.
Sure, come on back, please.
So the detention retention pond is further up the street from where I live. That's up
Exactly.
behind her, which is probably 6 or 7 houses up the street. The part of the parcel where the house is going to be built is going to be right across from me. And there's no retention pond or detention, but there's nothing there. There's no drains. I think the water just comes off of the fact there's so much impervious surface up there that was not there when the houses on Meadowgate were built, that it's really just coming off the impervious surfaces. So I think that was more of my concern than, I didn't even know, how, that the retention pond was supposed to be maintained or
What street,
anything.
what number are you?
I'm 43. I don't even show up on the maps, but you can see, and
It's
it's,
just like over here.
I'm right on the
It says
curve
cell
of
phones.
Meadowgate. Right on the curve. It's not on the maps that you guys have. So the house is further down towards the beginning of Meadowgate were the ones that I'd noticed the extreme flooding during rain events recently. So, and it could even just be, who knows, it's coming from Maple Street, I don't know. I just, my concern is that parcel's right smack dab in the middle of what is becoming a problem.
I'm sorry, what number were you?
I'm at 43, and I look across to,
You're going to be.
do you
So
know what
on your
number we're
map, I
behind?
think the only abutting property owner, the last one's going to be Nancy Kerr, I believe.
Right.
Okay.
But you did
Maria.
send letters to the other neighbors too.
Right,
Yeah.
so I would say 2 houses to the left of Nancy going towards Route 3. Tracy, you're right across from there.
Right. And the river I saw was between the house next to Nancy's and the next house and the next house. Those are the 2 that I've seen,
So it'd be
so.
62 and 52 Meadowgate
Thank
between
you.
those 2.
Okay, and then the next one down, so
Yeah.
maybe it's 42, I don't know. So thank you.
So I think it's the whole slope of that area, because again, as you come around that curve, Route 3, you're sloping all down to Meadowgate.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any, there isn't any detention pond or retention pond that they're supposed to be maintaining on that side of the street.
No, there isn't.
It's just that there's already a flooding problem, and I'm concerned that they're going to be adding more impervious surface to the area.
So is that flooding problem, has it become more of an issue because and I don't know the answer to this, was the slope of the land supposed to be such that that water, some of that water may have been supposed to be draining into the detention area. I don't know. So again, has there been things done over the years to change the contour of that land? And/or has there been things that have not been done over the years to maintain what should have been maintained to make sure the drainage is proper? Could be a combination.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever was supposed to have been done when the parking lot was expanded probably was done. Two things. One, was it maintained? And two, is it sufficient in the current environment? Or are there factors from off the church property that are, coming into play? I mean, and to be honest, sitting here tonight, we can't answer that.
And we don't know either.
Yeah,
This is
but
concern.
to your original point, I mean, we will flag the issue as one that the engineering department should look at in conjunction with the development of Lot B.
Because obviously whoever buys that property, whether it's a developer or individual person or whoever, I mean, they would have to be keenly aware of, I don't want to say stipulations, but these concerns that, there may be adjustments that are needed to that property in order to get a house in there.
Yeah, I mean, and it looks like the back of the house property is 3 feet higher than the top of the detention basin.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to see more water coming into that detention area just because a house is going in
Yeah,
there.
I mean, it looks like it's designed to flow
Okay.
toward the system in Maple Street. George?
The town engineering staff will comment on this kind of thing.
Correct. So they
Have they reviewed it yet?
Yep, they reviewed
They
this.
had, they usually do, so.
Yep. So the thing to remember with this is, they show a house, but it's just sort of an example house right now. The exact house could change when they come in for a building permit. So when they come in for a building permit, engineering department, zoning, everybody will look at this to make sure that, no drainage is going to be affected, setbacks and everything are met, all that kind of thing.
And the buffer's maintained? We put
Exactly.
that in there? Okay. Is this, will this only be a single dwelling?
It's proposed as a single family, the way it's shown. Yep.
What zone is it in?
Zone A, I believe. A1.
Can you put more than a single in there?
Well, you could have an accessory unit, but
Oh,
That would be it.
other than that. Okay.
So you can have an accessory there?
You can have almost
anybody can have
anywhere
an
in town.
accessory anywhere now.
Yeah, true.
Just to let everybody
You
know.
can have an accessory, and you can have an accessory.
Everybody.
No, my father's not moving in.
I'm just a little confused. Where's the buffer right now? Is that the back of the proposed property cut?
It's no, it's behind the property, it's up at the top where the
Well, the buffer does,
northwest corner of the property.
Oh, so it's far from this,
Yeah, it's like 300-400 feet from
Yeah.
it.
but keep in mind, it's not just my corner lot. That buffer was to go all the way down Meadowgate. Okay, I don't want the commissioners to think that it's only against my property that buffer. That buffer was to go across multiple properties on Meadowgate.
Yeah, they show trees to Nancy Kerr, but after that, they don't show Meadowgate, because
Right, but that's
Maria
what I'm saying, is
Valenti
that is part of the whole church expansion years ago. The requirement was that they were to, because they wanted to take every tree down, and we fought them to keep a good buffer between the abutting property owners and the church. So what you're seeing on those plans, it's not just my corner lot there where that buffer is. That buffer is to go all the way down, and that's what's getting thin at parts.
so it's mostly the eastern side, right?
You consider more the
The
north
northern
side?
side.
North side.
Northeast side, north side?
More the
What was
north
the
Looks
side.
like northeast side. It's this old boundary here she's talking about, right?
That's,
It's not clear when you look at it, but that's what she's talking about.
yeah, she's talking primarily northwest, I think.
Okay. I'm just trying to ascertain if any development of this small lot in the front will affect any of the trees along that boundary That was really what I was trying to figure out.
No, the engineer said show which trees are staying, which ones are coming out, and the only one that they show coming out is one of the two along Maple Street where they want to put a driveway.
So I think to answer your question, there's no impact to any of the vegetation there. And I don't think, we can ask them to replant that whole side for this little piece that they're cutting out.
No, as long as they're not, if you approve this, that whoever buys that property doesn't come in and say, well, now I want to remove some of these trees. That's the point. I want the stipulation in there that says, your plans may say we're only going to remove one tree and it's over towards Maple Street.
Yeah, but they have to come in for approval anyway, so whoever buys a lot.
But do they have to ask approval to take down trees?
Well,
Those
if they
trees
approve the
aren't gonna
lot,
be
they've
part
got
of
to
this
come
lot.
to us, yeah. This is like he said, this is just a cartoon, this isn't anything. They're here basically to sell a piece of land. Whoever buys it has to come before here in the engineering department and get approval for everything. So they just want to sell a piece of land and go home, right? That's all you want to do.
We could have the applicant respond.
I think the trees that are being referenced are not on the parcel that's being subdivided. It's not on Lot B. It's still on church property.
Okay.
So whoever comes in and buys that lot is not going to have the opportunity to cut back or even touch any of the vegetation that's beyond the back.
Because it's all on your church property,
Still
so
on church property.
that's fine, perfect.
I think that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to get to, because that's what it looks
Yeah.
like in your
Thought I
plan.
said
Yeah,
that
that's
too.
fine.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the public have any questions or comments? Anybody else? Not any final questions for the applicant, any final statements from the applicant?
Could you address the retention pond that hasn't been maintained over the years? Could you kind of just shed some light on what's going on with that retention pond? And is it something that needs to be cleaned out? I guess is my question.
Well, as far as I know, the detention pond, there's a requirement that it be, the vegetation be cut that's in the pond. So many times a year, I think it might be twice or 4 times a year, I'm not sure, but there's a schedule that it's on, and we have a contractor that is on point for doing just that. So it's not cut or mowed every time we mow the lawn area, but it is kept where we don't allow tree limbs and broken things to fall in there and stay in there uncleaned. It is cleaned out and it is cut periodically according to schedule.
Was that maintenance that you're talking about, was that part of the original approvals? Are you abiding by the original approvals of how that should be maintained?
I believe that's where it came from, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. If not, is there a motion to close the hearing?
Motion so made, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Second?
Okay, a motion by George, second by Tom to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve application 2179-24Z, Wethersfield Evangelical Free Church seeking resubdivision approval to create a new Lot B for a total of 2 lots at 495, 511 Maple Street, with just the stipulation that water flow through this lot is got to be carefully considered, and that engineering review that for future flow probably to Maple Street, and that if the retention pond is in a condition, if engineering determines, should look at that retention pond, and if engineering determines that that retention pond has not been maintained to the standards required to to make that work properly, that the applicant should proceed to, the proper maintenance on it. It's kind of a rough one here, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to get to.
Mr. Chairman?
And that items 6 and 7 from the
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
memo be addressed?
Yes, item 6 and 7 from the memo, I guess that was the engineering.
Derek
will be
Engineering.
addressed. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, Tom?
Yeah, I was just going to add that I tend to think that well, I don't think there's been a second yet, but before, and I was going to second, but before I second, I was going to suggest that we amend the motion, or if the motion would be allowed to be amended by incorporating the comments that are from the town engineering staff in their letter of April 5th, 2024. I think there are 20, let's see how many, yeah, there are 21 recommendations that are contained in that memo. I think the applicant's engineer has responded to, their approval of all those, but I tend to think that we need to have that as part of the condition for approval of the application.
Do we need all 21 at this point?
Well, it makes a complete record, our approval of the engineering recommendations, even though the applicant has, basically has responded and said
I'm
that
okay
it
with
would be.
that. I mean, it's just to be comprehensive, that's okay with me.
Yeah, it's fine. All right, would you second it then?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. Motion by Peter, second by Tom. Does anybody, Dave?
Yeah, the only comment I have, all due respect to Pete, other than the engineering, I don't know why we need to put any stipulations at all on it. It's just, they're selling a piece of land, then whoever buys it has to go through all this exercise to get all these approvals anyways, including, any impact, flooding or anything, so,
I agree with that, Dave, with the only exception that that retention pond is really out of the control of anybody that's going to come.
No, but I agree with you, but maybe the engineering department, maybe the town should be looking at anyways, with nothing to do with this lot.
Well,
They're doing this, maybe they should take a walk down the hill and take a look at it.
No, I agree with you, but I mean, there are only so many people that work up there, and if it's part of this,
Okay,
part
I'm just
of
saying,
this
again,
approval
they're just
is,
trying to sell a piece of land, that's all. The guy who
Yeah.
buys it needs to exercise everything he needs to do and do everything we need to do, and so.
no, and
Okay,
I think the
that's
second comment about the drainage on the development of Lot B kind of goes without saying, because they'll have to do that.
fine. They'll have to do
But I
that.
think, flagging the status of the maintenance of the detention basin, is something that's kind of been brought to our attention, and,
Yeah, it's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't know if there's lack of maintenance at all, it's not like they're taking care of it, but, yeah, it's fine.
yeah,
Have a look at it.
yeah, I mean, otherwise, they won't do it.
Correct.
And to your point, Richard, once they open the door, I mean, this is our chance to say, take a look at that pond, make sure it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see it along the same vein as, approving a change of a storefront on the condition that they check out the pavement, that sort of thing. It's sort of like, while it's here in front of us, try to do something to,
Right.
make sure the conditions are the way they're supposed to be.
Correct.
All right, any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Congratulations. Other business? I see none. Minutes? I see none. Staff report?
Nothing too big. A couple things I did want to note. You'll see in number 9 of the agenda, there's no pending applications. Don't get excited because we actually have 4 applications for the next meeting. The difference with this is that because there's an extra week in April, we have an extra week to get those applications in, so that's why the deadline was today. So the next meeting, you'll actually have quite a few applications. Yeah. No such luck.
Yeah, I need to set up an out-of-town meeting.
Just to give you a sense of what those are, 1,000 Silas Deane, if they have their revised plans, they would be in. 718 Silas Deane Highway, that's the Wethersfield Diner. They just applied to demo the diner and put up a 19-unit apartment mixed-use building.
19 unit?
Yeah, I thought,
Next to the gas station?
Correct. Same owners.
he came in for a, what was it called?
Pre-application, yeah.
Pre-application discussion.
Yeah, Octane Acres.
So that's one of them. I think it's 36 Mill Street, if I have the number right. That's that dentist office that's on Mill Street, sort of across from where Marshall's is.
It's like the driveway to, the back driveway to the new doctor's office.
And it's the
Yes.
building right next to the driveway?
Correct. So
That's
that,
going to happen?
well, they're coming in for an application for a, essentially a retail spot. What they want to do is, you see them around in some areas, they sort of have different tenant, like vendor booths. They're like, almost like an estate sale kind of thing when you go through and like they're selling different antiques at different types of areas. So that's what they're coming in for.
An indoor flea market.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
And the last one, last but not least, another RV. So just be prepared for that.
In the front yard?
Yeah, driveway. So those are the ones that are coming up next meeting. Nothing much else for today. Those who have volunteered to be on the POCD subcommittee, you'll be getting an email from me tomorrow setting up a date, probably in early May, I think May 7th or 8th. Tom, I'll give you a call to set that up with you. And that's all I have for now.
Justin, quick question or comment. These RV and boat things, right? There's been a couple of discussions that we've had where people have gone out and bought the thing and come in here, or because they're getting jammed up, and they say, I didn't know that.
Yep.
And somebody made a nice comment, I think it was when the RV discussion was a couple of months ago. She said how difficult it was to find this regulation. Just an idea out there, and I saw it in some other town, and I was almost going to snap a picture and send it.
Yep.
Is there a way to call attention to that on our front page as people, this summer's coming, people are buying stuff like this?
Yeah.
Hey, if you're buying an RV or a boat,
Yeah.
make sure you're aware of this.
Even social media, if you wanted to.
Yeah, just so people are, because most people aren't going to be thinking about fishing through regulations when they buy a 23-foot boat.
Right.
It's not a lobster boat.
Right. No, that's a really good point, and we are working on a redesign of the website, so we can definitely incorporate something like that, sort of call-outs of sections.
Even on the front town homepage, if there's just a, hey.
Yeah, just like an announcement, I mean.
Right.
Boat and RV
There's like an
season is
email a
here.
day about something. You can put it on the scroller on channel 16.
If you have
That's
a
not a bad
detention
idea.
pond,
Yeah.
please make sure you pay attention.
Well, it's interesting, too, because like
If you're
the,
gonna go into the red onions to the West Indies industry, bear in mind that you can't park your boat in your front yard.
Can I put a refrigerator in my front driveway for the summer?
Refrigerator?
is it plugged in?
How big is it?
Big.
Fire marshal look at it yet?
They don't have to go in the house during the summer.
There you go.
Yeah, put out
Wait in minutes.
put out an 18-foot couch, too.
Well, the interesting thing with like the RV coming in for your next meeting, she said she's had to park there for 7 years, and just got a complaint recently. So it's
That's why I said about the time, and I know Richard didn't agree with it. I was just thinking, when we grant these things, if you put a time, to this point, maybe new neighbors moved in on this RV coming in.
Yeah.
Something changed.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think that the consensus from this commission has been to sort of revise our regulations to send these applications to ZBA in the future. So that will be coming at some point to you guys, hoping for it to happen at a later meeting. But I think there's a general consensus among this group for that. So
I'd also be interested in knowing, surrounding towns, how they handle it. Just to give you one example, Glastonbury, if I had to guess, I would think they probably make it incredibly restrictive or impossible to do that kind of stuff in driveways. I could be completely wrong, but it would be interesting just to see, Newington, Rocky Hill, Glastonbury.
I would think it'd be opposite.
Yeah, I bet you the inner city they're tough, but on the outside,
Yeah, I don't know, but the front
36-foot boats
facing
in
the street,
Glastonbury.
you know, I don't know.
They don't allow boats as small as 23 feet.
Probably.
It's a minimum size.
30 foot.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I think Peter had done research, or Peter or Denise had done research on that maybe
See if I can
4 or
dig it up.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think that guy's, the one we just heard, I think his arcade or that, the SUV he uses to pull the boat may be bigger than the boat if you look at the picture.
Justin, I just, going back to this 1,000 Silas Deane.
Yeah.
What exactly do they have to do that pushed it out to the next meeting? I mean, I saw their site plan, and I saw the comments from engineering, so it made sense, all that made sense. But why did they say it's preliminary, and you have to do a bunch of this work? Why couldn't we have just reviewed it as is with conditions that they, you know,
Yeah.
take care of those issues? I mean, that's what I was trying to understand.
It was.
Seems incomplete.
It was, yeah. The main issue was that, you know, I think myself, the town engineer, are fine, like with the subdivision we did tonight, you know, you had conditions on it that still have to be addressed, that's all right, but this was very far from that point. You know, they included 3 sheets with their application, they need to quadruple that at least, in terms of
Details?
erosion sediment control.
Details, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Details,
So
right.
it's, there was a lot of missing detail with that, and it was staff's judgment that it would have been one of those things where it comes before you and there would have been so many unanswered questions that the list of conditions would have been too long.
It would have been frustrating for everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right, anybody else have anything? If not, the members of the public are here. Motion to adjourn.
Yes, moved.
Second?
All right,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Joe, for starting the meeting.
Oh, you're welcome.
So Dave, let me get this straight. What refrigerator are you going back?